to order. And we'll begin with as usual, with a poem from our poet laureate, Jenna Lynn Albert.
Thank you, Your Worship. The poem I'm about to read tonight is dedicated to Clinic 554. At the end of September, there will be no abortion access in the city of Fredericton. Clinic 554 not only provided an essential service with its abortions, it was also, it still is until the end of the month, a phenomenal provider of LGBTQIA2S plus healthcare that has set a standard across the province and across the country. The poem I'm reading tonight is called Those Who Need to Hear This Won't Listen by Conyer Clayton. Those who need to hear this won't listen. The small white pill melted slowly on my tongue. It softened my cervix but hardened my will. I won't stay married to my mistakes, a curdling thing that needed to live so I could realize what needed to die. My life could be worse if I hadn't done it. The cord that bound us unterrible, thick-fleshed. Are you sure? I cried, a procedural pinch deep in my belly, nondescript ceiling. A nurse held my hand. Little pinch now, big pinch now. Are you ready? Are you sure? I cried, loss tinged with relief, a hard blessing for tubes and cotton swabs, a soft one for accessibility. All tests showed a tight clamped future. Are you sure? Those who don't believe this won't believe me. I cried harder when the little stick turned blue than when the doctor said, "That's it. If you bleed for more than 48 hours, come back to the hospital." I only bled for an afternoon, lounging on my couch, emboldened by the realization of choice, my life, and my power to choose in it, my power to leave anything that needs leaving. This is what happens when you get an abortion in a country where you can get an abortion. You go to a hospital, you talk to a nurse for an hour, you examine every detail of your life. They ask, "Are you sure?" over and over and over again. If you're sure, you take the pill. You sit with others waiting for their cervix to soften. Sometimes people are crying. Most people are not. You wait for an hour or more. Your name is called and you enter a room. You sit in another room until you feel ready to leave. Forever, someone is asking, "Were you sure?" They told me I'd be nauseous as the drugs wore off. Don't drink or eat. But giddy, I had 3 graham crackers, and I was fine. And I just want to end that poem by reading some of the commentary that the poet had following it. From Conyer Clayton. My poem, Those Who Need to Hear This Won't Listen, is about my abortion and the good it did for me. I recently became a dual Canadian-American citizen. I grew up in the southern US in Kentucky. I moved to Canada when I was 25 and shortly after had an abortion. It was, politically and medically speaking, a non-event. As this happened in my life, I watched from afar as my friends and loved ones back in the US had their rights slowly stripped away. Had I stayed there, would I have been politically forced to have a child? Would I have been berated and shamed as I walked into the clinic? This poem is a reflection on those circumstances and how even in a country like Canada, where abortion is unquestionably legal, there is still a degree of stigma and there are still barriers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jenna Lynn. We'll move to the approval of agenda. City Clerk. Yes, Councillor Keenan.
Thank you. I say this with the utmost respect for Jenna Lynn and what she brings to this council as she does her poetry. But I go back to how we ended up having poet laureates as part of our process here. We removed prayer at the beginning of the meetings because it was a political issue. And we didn't want that at our council, whether people wanted to have prayer or didn't want to have prayer. I'm terribly concerned that we are now politicizing our poems. And it hurts me that it's come to that, but I completely agree with freedom of speech and the right for people to say what they want to say, but that was never the intention of this forum that we developed. And I think that's what it's become. So I think we need to seriously look at this, whether we continue with these at the beginning of each meeting or whether we find some other mechanism. But this has become political activism. You know, and I don't think it's good for the people that are, you know, it may raise awareness, but I don't think that was the intention of what we wanted to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keenan. Councillor Chase.
Thanks, Your Worship. I agree fully with Councillor Keenan. You know, we did drop the prayer because, you know, there were sensitivities that it evoked with other people. We moved to, you know, thought of the week, but it was never intended to be a political statement. Rather, I think Councillor Keenan's comments are on square. Absolutely right.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor McDermott.
Thank you, Your Worship. I wasn't expecting to say anything. I thought it was a really powerful poem. I think the timeliness of it was really appropriate. And I'm going to respectfully disagree with my colleagues on this. This isn't about politics. It's not about, certainly not about religion. It's social commentary around a basic human right. And if we can't talk about rights, I don't know what we're doing here. As far as having a poet laureate or any sort of laureate, creative arts are really about provoking conversation. It's a mirror against society. That's what the arts are. That's what poetry is all about. It's about making us think about stuff. And obviously it's made people in this room think about stuff and they're not comfortable with it. And I look at that and I think, well done, Jenna Lynn. Like that's what the point of it is to make us think about it. We used to have a moment of, what was our moment of reflection? 30 seconds of silence. Well, that was just 30 seconds of people counting down 30 seconds and waiting to go on to the next stuff. This is stuff that I think leaves people to think about, and none of the commentary that I've seen that's been presented, I think is is beyond the pale or out of line. Again, it's a reflection of our community. We've had commentary, we've had poems about Black Lives Matter and the experience of people of color within our community. And it's not the experience that anyone around this table has. And it's important that we have those conversations. It's not political. It's about our community, and it's a reflection of our community. And every once in a while, it's about pointing us in a direction and saying there are fundamental flaws with what's going on, and we need to think long and hard about what the solutions are. So I am not prepared in any way to rethink the whole idea of having a poet laureate. Thank you.
Councillor Erickson.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to point out to my colleagues that we didn't abandon prayers in front of municipal council meetings because some people thought it was uncomfortable. Or maybe we did, but those some people served on the Supreme Court of Canada and they said municipalities can't do it, so we stopped doing it. It wasn't to avoid doing anything that might cause reflection or ripples in the water. And nonetheless, this is a matter that should be discussed at the Governance Committee on an appropriate agenda with appropriate forethought and time to put our ducks in a row so we don't get into a flap unnecessarily.
Yep. Councillor Rogers. Oh, your button. There you
Thanks, Your Worship. I just want to add that really the role of the Poet Laureate is, I think when you look at sort of that job description, there are many elements to it, but one is to provide sort of a cultural commentary on what is happening in our community, something that's contemporary, that's of the day. And I would agree. I think that the arts gives an opportunity for a person to be provocative and to express ideas and perspectives in a format that's, I think, intentionally to be not confrontational, but as opposed to be provocative and thoughtful. And to me, that's what we have had. It's different than the experience that we had with our last poet laureate. But the arts aren't always comfortable, and they can't always be sanitized, or they don't carry out their role. And I think really the role of the arts is to be pushing us forward, pushing society forward. And the very fact we're having this conversation as a result of that poem, to me, is productive. So I appreciate that it's uncomfortable and it's unsettling, but sometimes we need to be uncomfortable in order to make us think deeper about a subject. And I think that was one of the purposes of having the poet laureate. It wasn't just someone to come and read pretty poems and to entertain us. It was someone who put forward some really interesting ideas in an artistic context, so that it wasn't combative. It was just to be reflective.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, Councillor McGarity.
Look, the poem was good. I mean, she's on a subject that it touches a lot of people, and it's very sensitive information. But I guess what this opens is we have to be fair and considerate to all our citizens, regardless of their opinion. So if we provide that level, then we have to open it up to other diverse opinions, and it'll get uncomfortable. So, and maybe we have to get uncomfortable. I don't know, but we can get into a big discussion here, big discussion. So it's something that's coming, and maybe we have to sit back and reevaluate. And because I know there's other subjects coming that might make us more uncomfortable. So, it's a changing world, and there's a lot of diverse opinions out there. But I said before, and you've heard me say it again, we have to be all inclusive to everyone. Everyone has an opinion. But I mean, if we provide that playing field, we have to be open to everyone. So this could go in many different areas. So something that we need to continue the conversation. We can go on tonight a long time, but I think we need to continue it sometime. Thank you.
Well, that's good. So look, thanks for people raising this and speaking to it. That's what this is all about. This is something different for us. There's no question about it, and it has challenged what we normally would do in these chambers. And I think the question is not whether it's somebody that's uncomfortable or not. It's the fact that is it the appropriate type of forum for the elected body for the city of Fredericton, and perhaps it is. Maybe it's not. So that's what the discussion is tonight, I think. So I think the suggestion that it goes to our governance committee for a conversation just about the future, how we roll this out, and so that we can get a better feel as a group for the level of engagement that we carry on with in the future. So yes, things are to challenge you and make you think, and they certainly do. We just have to make sure that we're doing it into a couple of councillors mentioned it. Is it opinion? Or is it poem? Or is it art? So, it's a bit of both, right? So, and we just have to make sure that as representatives of all the people of Fredericton that we get this right. So, we're pushing some boundaries here that a lot of other municipalities aren't, and that's good. But we have to make sure we do it appropriately. So, we'll have a conversation in the governance committee and carry this on. Okay. Does anybody have a conflict of interest to declare on any items?
Your Worship, we never.
Oh, we never voted on we didn't the approval of the agenda. Sorry.
No additional items.
There's no additional items. Yeah, got sidetracked there. So moved by Councillor Keenan, second by Councillor Peters, that the agenda be adopted. All those in favor? Against? Motion is carried. Again, does anybody have a conflict of interest? No. The consent agenda. There are 6 items on the consent agenda. There's 2 proclamations that we've been requested to read, and but I'll move. It'll be moved by Councillor Dare and second by Councillor Grandy that the consent agenda be put forward. And on the question, we'll read the motions. Okay. At the beginning, the Arthritis Awareness Month, they have requested that I read the proclamation. Whereas September is known as Arthritis Awareness Month, and the Arthritis Society promotes public awareness about this chronic disease that can affect children, adults, and seniors. Whereas the Arthritis Society educates the public about this disease through their website, info line, online webinars, and other mechanisms. Whereas by supporting the provision of education, awareness building, advocacy, and funding of research, the Arthritis Society and its fundraising initiatives help over 6 million people, including 1 in 4 New Brunswickers. That's a high number. One of the highest prevalences in Canada. Whereas the Arthritis Awareness Month will focus on communities committing to a world without arthritis, providing help to those living with arthritis, and supporting innovative research to ultimately find a cure for this debilitating disease. Therefore, as Mayor, I do hereby proclaim the month of September 2020 as Arthritis Awareness Month in the City of Fredericton. And the next, we have Fire Prevention Week. And I will ask our Chair of Public Safety and Environment to read the proclamation, and then we'll ask Chief Dwayne Killingbeck to be able to speak to the issue. Councillor Chase.
Thank you, Your Worship. On my way down to Council tonight, I noticed the big poster on the lawn at the York Street Fire Station. I commend people to go have a look at it. It's really quite a nice poster. Anyway, Fire Prevention Week is the week of 4th to 10th of October 2020. Whereas in commemoration of the Great Chicago Fire of 1871, Fire Prevention Week occurs annually during the week in which October 9th falls. And whereas the 2020 fire prevention theme is Serve Up Fire Safety in the Kitchen, and whereas needless loss of lives and property result from fire could be significantly reduced or eliminated by individual and community fire prevention programs, and whereas the members of the fire service and other public agencies can ensure that a successful fight against the conditions that cause fires, and whereas each citizen is capable of providing a fire-safe place in which to live and work by eliminating those fire hazards that cause loss of life and property. Therefore, on behalf of Mayor Mike O'Brien, Mayor of the City of Fredericton, I do hereby proclaim October 4th to 10th, 2020 as Fire Prevention Week. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Chase. And Chief Killingbeck, would you like to say anything about this week?
Thank you, Your Worship. This is Stephen Fraser, Assistant Deputy.
Oh, Stephen Fraser, yes, Mr. Fraser, sorry.
Yes, I'm Assistant Deputy Chief of Operations. I'll be speaking on behalf of Chief Killingbeck. Well, thank you, Your Worship. As Councillor Chase has stated, Fire Prevention Week was first established to commemorate the Great Chicago Fire, which occurred on October 9th, 1871, which destroyed a large section of the city. Most cities, including Fredericton, have experienced similar fires in their history, and the Government of Canada has been recognizing Fire Prevention Week for over 100 years since 1919. Each year, Fire Prevention Week has a different theme, ranging from cooking-related fires to working smoke alarms to safe meeting places. It serves as a reminder for people to practice fire safety in their communities, with this year's theme being Serve Up Fire Safety in the Kitchen. Cooking is the #1 cause of home fires and home fire injuries. This year's Fire Prevention Week campaign works to educate everyone about simple but important actions they can take to keep themselves and those around them safe. In conjunction with the Office of the Fire Marshal, the Fredericton Fire Department will be working to spread the message of fire safety in the kitchen with such tips as paying attention to cooking food, keep stove tops and counters clean, turn pot handles inwards, and escape the house if the kitchen is on fire. And once safely outside, call 911 for help from the fire department. On behalf of Fire Chief Dwayne Killingbeck and the Fredericton Fire Department, it is my honor to proclaim this week as Fire Prevention Week for 2020. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the work that our great fire department and firefighters do. So we look forward to the public education process, and yes, people pay attention. I try to do my part by not cooking, so or nobody would eat my cooking anyways. It's a very important subject, so thank you very much for that. It was moved and seconded. All those in favor of the consent agenda? All those against? The motion is carried. First and second reading of bylaws. 6.1, bylaw Z5, 198, 173 Clark Street, rezoning. Councillor McGarity.
Thank you, Your Worship. Be it resolved that the report of the Planning Advisory Committee dated September 17, 2020, with respect to the application of Charles Youssef to rezone property residential zone 2, R2 to multiple residential zone 2, MR2, to permit construction of a 12-unit apartment building at 173 Clark Street be received.
Seconded by Councillor Price. On the question. All those in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion is carried. City Clerk, hearing of objections and support.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Office of the City Clerk has not received any letters of objection or support.
Thank you. Councillor McGarity, carry on.
Be it resolved that bylaw number Z-5198, a bylaw to amend bylaw number Z-5 is a zoning bylaw for the City of Fred be given first reading by title.
Seconded by Councillor Price. On the question. All those in, sorry, Councillor Price, there you are.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just want to say Just want to see, I'm glad to see this this one coming through. This is a really good infill project for Clark Street. It's got a fairly large church property on one side. It's got some high density behind it and a street on the other side. It's a great infill and 12 more badly needed units on the north side. So thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? All those in favor? Against? Motion's carried.
Be it resolved that bylaw number Z-5.198, bylaw amend bylaw number Z-5, a zoning bylaw for the City of Fredericton be given second reading by title.
Seconded by Councillor Price. On the question. All those in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion is carried. 6.2, bylaw Z-5202, 275, 281 Rainsford Lane. Councillor Malay is not here tonight. Councillor Chase, you take that one, would you?
Thank you, Your Worship. Be it resolved that the report of the Planning Advisory Committee dated September 17, 2020, with respect to an application from Craig Moore to rezone property from residential zone R2 to residential zone R3 be received. And be it further resolved that the 8% public dedication for the tentative plan of subdivision to create two new R3 lots at 275, 281. I just run off the page here. 275, 281 Rainsford Lane be taken in the form of cash to be received. I so move.
Seconded by Councillor Keenan. On the question. All those in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion is carried. City Clerk, hearing of objections and support.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Office of the City Clerk has not received any letters of objection or support.
Thank you. Carry on, Councillor Chase.
Be it resolved, the bylaw number Z5.202, bylaw to amend bylaw number Z5, a zoning bylaw for the City of Fredericton, be given first reading by title.
Seconded by Councillor Keenan. On the question. All those in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion is carried.
Be it resolved, the bylaw number Z5.202, a bylaw to amend bylaws Z5, a zoning bylaw for the City of Fredericton, be given second reading by title.
Seconded by Councillor Keenan. On the question. All those in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion is carried. 6.3, bylaw number Z5203, Burn Street, rezoning. Councillor Peters.
Thank you, Your Worship. Be it resolved that the report of the Planning Advisory Committee dated September 17th, 2020, with respect to an application from Frank Flanagan on behalf of EXP to rezone property from residential zone 3, R3, and residential zone 5, R5, to residential mini home zone, RMH, and that the location of the public street and tentative plan of subdivision to create 20 RMH lots on the extension of Burn Street as shown on map 3 be received, and Be it further resolved that the tentative plan of subdivision prepared by EXP Northbrook Master Plan, Northbrook Holdings Limited, property Brookside Drive, Fredericton, Brunswick, Southbrook subdivision, tentative subdivision plan, phase 1, receive the assent of council pursuant to section 88 sub 4 of the Community Planning Act.
Second by Councillor Grandy. Yes, Councillor Grandy.
Sorry, I don't mean to be picky, but he read Southbrook subdivision in the last line rather than Northbrook subdivision. So just want to make sure. Was that okay, City Clerk? Okay.
We're good.
Close enough, right? All right, second by Councillor Grandy on the question. All those in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion's carried. City Clerk, hearing of objections and support.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Office of City Clerk has not received any letters of objection or support.
Thank you. Carry on, Councillor Peters.
Thank you. Be it resolved that the bylaw number Z-5.203, a bylaw to amend bylaw number Z-5, a zoning bylaw for the city of Fredericton, be given first reading by title.
Second by Councillor Grandy on the question. All those in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion is carried. Second reading.
Thank you. Be it resolved that the bylaw number Z-5.203, a bylaw to amend bylaw number Z-5, a zoning bylaw for the city of Fredericton, be given second reading by title.
Seconded by Councillor Grandy on the question. All those in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion is carried. 6.4, change to terms and conditions of 374 King Street. Councillor McDermott.
Thank you, Your Worship. Be it resolved that the report of the Planning Advisory Committee dated September 17, 2020, with respect to an application from Quarry Property Management Limited to amend terms and conditions A and B associated with bylaw number Z 5.190, which read as follows. A, the site be developed generally in accordance with map 2 attached to PR 23/20 to the satisfaction of the development officer. B, final building design be substantially in accordance with maps 3 and 4 attached to PR 23/20 to the satisfaction of the development officer, by repealing and replacing them with the following terms and conditions. The site be developed generally in accordance with map 2 attached to the planning report 69/20 to the satisfaction of the development officer. B, final building design be substantially in accordance with maps 3, 4, and 5 attached to planning report 69/20 to the satisfaction of the development officer. To allow design changes to a 5-story mixed-use building at 374 King Street be received.
Seconded by Councillor Rogers on the question. Councillor Rogers.
Yes, thank you, Worship. I have a couple of questions. And I think I probably have to ask these as staff. One is regarding, so some of the changes that are being made, while to me the wording of the motion implies that they're not significant, I see them as being rather significant. One is the step back that's at the back of the property. After the first story, it steps back, I think it's 3.7 meters. So certainly in our city center design, the setbacks on the upper stories are required, certainly from the front facing of the building. This is the rear facing, and I'm wondering if the guidelines apply. So that would be one question. My other question is more an expression of concern. The original mixed-use building contained 9 one-bedroom apartments, 6 two-bedroom apartments, and 3 studio apartments for 18 units total. But the request is that they all be changed to 18 two-bedroom units. And when I look at availability of property in the downtown region, in that region, as especially the mix of the types of units, we know that the mix is required. There's a great need for rental units in the downtown, and I think that it's very limiting that we be providing in this, particularly in this area, only 2-bedroom apartments. And I'm wondering what the rationale from the development officer was when agreeing to that.
Thank you, Councillor, and I'll throw those questions to Marcello Batalana. I think Marcello's on the line.
Yes, I am. Thank you, Your Worship. Just with regards to the first question, the requirement for the step back is only from the front of the structure. So we don't typically apply that to the rear of the structure. They were intending to make the foundation flush with the rear of the building, so that's why there was that change to the back of the structure. With respect to the number of units and the type of units, that was led essentially by the developer and the architect. From a staff perspective, we feel that 2-bedroom units and the number of them are still appropriate. Although there is a need, this was a recommendation that the developer wanted to proceed with. So from staff perspective, it's still more units in the downtown. So we were supportive of that. Thank you, thank you, Your Worship.
Can I just ask a quick follow-up? So the rear of that building in particular is exposed. There's quite a bit of exposure from Brunswick Street. So I understand it's facing King, but do we just ignore the way that it looks at the back? Is that, because I mean, it's still seen. When I think of that building in particular, it's quite exposed, will be quite exposed. So even though it's front facing onto King, what it looks like in the back will also be quite evident.
Marcello?
Through you, Your Worship. There still will be a design element to the rear of the structure, and a lot of the rear of the building will be. There's already an existing warehouse structure that is that it backs onto, so a lot of that won't have that type of exposure. But there is a design element to the rear. Of course, it's not as substantial as the design we require to the front of the structure, which is the public realm.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Marcello. We didn't vote on that, did we? So it was moved and seconded. All those in favor? Against? Motion's carried. City Clerk, hearing of objections and support.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Office of the City Clerk has not received any letters of objection or support.
Thank you. And Councillor McDermott, carry on.
Excuse me. Thank you, Your Worship. Whereas at the meeting of September 28, 2020, Council received a report of the Planning Advisory Committee recommending the terms and conditions set at Schedule A and adopted by Council at its meeting of April 14, 2020, pertaining to bylaw number Z 5.190 imposed on the property located at 374 King Street, be amended by repealing conditions and A and B and replacing them with new conditions A and B as follows. In order to permit design changes to a 5-story mixed-use building, the site be developed generally in accordance with MAP 2, attached to Planning Report 6920 to the satisfaction of the Development Officer. B, final building design be substantially in accordance with MAPs 3, 4, and 5, attached to Planning Report 6920 to the satisfaction of the Development Officer. And whereas the requirements of subsections 59, subsection 3, and section 111 of the Community Planning Act have been fulfilled with respect to the change in terms and conditions, be it resolved, the Council hereby adopts a proposed amendment to the terms and conditions imposed on property located at 374 King Street as set out above.
Seconded by Councillor Rogers. On the question. All those in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion is carried. Committee reports. There is 3 of them, and those would be for the Deputy Mayor to take. 7.1, CUPE Local 1709 Collective Agreement.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council Committee at session held on September 21st, 2020, reviewed an administrative report from the City Clerk, which requested Council approve the tentative agreement that has been reached with CUPE Local 1709 and SAD workers. 1709 includes communication operators, administrative assistants, clerks, and facilities maintenance. The bargaining unit consists of 120 full-time staff plus several temporary and casual staff. This will now bring 3 of our 6 bargaining units in line with CPI, as well as Mayor and Council and Management. With that, I'll read the resolution. Be it resolved that the Council of the City of Fredericton authorizes the Mayor and City Clerk to execute the collective agreement between the City of Fredericton and the Canadian Union of Public Employees, Local Union Number 1709, CUPE Local 1709, and that the Mayor and City Clerk be authorized to execute the necessary legal documents to facilitate this transaction.
Be seconded by Councillor Keenan. On the question. All those in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion is carried. And congratulations to the negotiating teams on both sides of the table. Well done. 7.2, UMNB Resolutions Annual Conference. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Be it resolved that Councillor Eric McGarity be directed to vote in the affirmative on the following UMNB resolutions. U2003, Safe Restart Negotiations. U2004, Universal Affordable High-Speed Internet Access in New Brunswick. U2001, Support for New Brunswick Forest Sector. And vote in the negative on the following UMNB resolutions. U2002, Code of Conduct Bylaw Creation and Enforcement. U2005, Municipal Elections 3-year term limit. U2006, Machinery Tax Resolution. I so move, Your Worship.
Seconded by Councillor McGarity. On the question, Councillor McGarity.
Just people wondering what UMNB means, is Union of Municipalities of New Brunswick. It is one of 3 municipal associations. The other is the Francophone Association of Municipalities and also the Cities of New Brunswick Municipalities. We also have administrators of New Brunswick, so it's sort of a pseudo 4th municipal association. So every year the resolutions come in from around the province from different municipalities and they're voted on. If they're voted with a plus, with a okay, then they go to the province. If they're voted down, then they die in the table. So there's some backup information. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion is carried. And 7.3, waiver of advertising revenue, Global Center Ice. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Be it resolved, the Council of the City of Fredericton authorizes and approves a request from Global Center Ice Inc. to waive the advertising revenue owed to the city by GCI from 2019 to 2020, calculated to be $16,192, and that the Mayor and City Clerk be authorized to execute the necessary legal documents required to facilitate this transaction. And be it further resolved that the decision of City Council is conditional upon staff receiving a written acknowledgement from Global Center Ice Inc. that this decision and the granting of its request does not constitute a waiver of the city's other rights or remedies, and further that the city's relief of payment is limited only to the portion of revenues not reimbursed by any provincial or federal relief program that Global Center Ice Inc. party would qualify for. And be it further resolved that the City of Fredericton commit to reviewing the revenue for the 2020-2021 time period. Nice move, Your Worship.
Seconded by Councillor Erickson. On the question. All those in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion is carried. And before we adjourn, Councillor Dare, you wanted to give a shout out to somebody.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I wanted to give a shout out to Ward 7 resident, Stephen Dixon, who's the owner of Grimross. Over the weekend, he did a triathlon, ultra triathlon, I believe is what it's called, for the Housing First. He wanted to raise $36,000 to put towards one of those units. He has raised $13,000, so he's looking for donations for the remainder. He said if they fall short, that Grimross will cover the shortage, but he's looking for help from everybody. So what he did was he swam for 5 kilometers, and then he rode a bike for 221 kilometers, and then he ran for 50. And he traveled from Edmundston to Fredericton on Saturday, and he arrived at the brewery on Saturday night for a celebratory beverage. So anyway, if you would like to support him, that'd be great.
Thanks for raising that. Another great community member giving back, so good for him. Motion to excuse Council. Oh, sorry, Councillor Keenan.
Do you mind if I just say a quick word?
Please.
Yeah, I wanted to acknowledge our police department, specifically this week while we have many of the members are testifying this week, and it must be an especially trying week for them. So just to acknowledge that I'm thinking of them, I'm sure all of council is, and that we support the work that they do every day in putting their lives on the line to keep the rest of us safe. So must be a very difficult time, and I'm certainly thinking of that.
Thanks for raising that, Councillor Keenan. Very appropriate. And while they're doing that, like you say, still out today in another incident today looking after us. So very crucial work that they do, and we support them 100%. Motion to excuse Councillor Millet. That would be moved by Councillor Rogers, second by Councillor Grandy. All those in favor? Against? Motion is carried. And a motion to adjourn. That would be Peters and Price. All those in favor? Against? It's carried.